sense, I think a lot of people's experiences of raving and clubbing in traditional context is, in a sense, you go unconscious to yourself.
Yes.
And so you kind of go into a kind of, you could say you go into a state of oneness, but it's a kind of unconscious oneness that you kind of merge into that thing.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, I think, in what you're doing, that you're actually doing the opposite. You're actually becoming conscious in the experience of it.
Yeah, well, we're turning clubbing on its head. And I used to take loads of drugs, and it did really open me up. I remember, particularly acid and mushrooms, those things do open you up.
Mm-hmm.
But then there just comes a point where you're like, okay, if I can do this with this random substance, surely I can do this without it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're really promoting with our events.
Yes.
And for me personally, I've actually become a lot more conscious and a lot more in my body and a bit more real in my communications with people, a lot more authentic. And what's also really beautiful is you get people of different ages, different professions. We're bringing hippies and bankers together. Everyone's always been like, oh, hippie dippies, wanker bankers, and people do have these things about each other, but suddenly they find themselves in this room all raving to the same song that they from the 90s that they loved, and they're looking at each other's eyes and they're connecting, and they're like, oh, actually they're not wankers.
Yeah.
And they're not hippie dippies. They're seeing each other for the souls, for the souls they are.
Well, there's something remarkable that happens when you get people together and they do the same thing. And it's like it builds a kind of sense of connection, of rapport, of oneness, because you're in that experience together.
Exactly.
And you said before we started filming, one of the little stories you told me was at the event down in Brighton that you had the police. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that on camera, it's a great story. So well, you tell the story.
Okay, so there I was skipping around in my shells, holding my breasts and my little tutu, and the police came down. And
this was at what time of morning?
This is at about 6:37. No, this is about 7 actually, because the party was already really pumping.
Yes.
And so they heard it and thought it was a party that had been going on from the night before. So they thought, we better check it out.
I mean, what else would you think at 7 o'clock in the morning in Brighton?
Exactly. And I sort of turn up because I see the police. I go to the door, and because I'm on such a high, I look like I'm gurning or something. Okay. I was so happy. I was like, oh, the police are here. I was just like, no, it's a starting party. And they were like, oh, they were quite surprised. And in the end, they were like, oh, and next thing we know, we're hugging, and they came in. And for me, it just reminded me of all those stories I heard about that flower power movement.
Those iconic images of police
dancing
in some of those situations.
Exactly. And that really touched me because we also had Lib Dem MPs who actually didn't come for PR purposes, because they didn't tell us. We only got an email after saying thank you, all dancing in this space. And I just thought what we're doing here is really bringing people together and all the different professions.
Yes.